So I'm going to go ahead and start this session. It's asking me for the expected end time because a lot of people will forget to end their session.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to know when it's supposed to end. And then I just start my session. Okay. So I'm going to discuss one of the things you said is your RBTs are going to be moving around. They're not going to be sitting at a table a lot. They're going to be up and down with the learners a lot, right? So I would recommend that maybe you have them take data on a phone. You can modify the interface that allows them to take data quickly without scrolling around and tapping in too many places. Yeah, and then I'll start jumping into different measures and like behavior reduction measures and skill acquisition measures. Mm-hmm. And I just want to show you how flexible the interface is for the RBT to customize for how they do their sessions.
Awesome.
So I'm working with London and it's the morning time. We're in the home and I can see a long list of programs here, but I know which ones I'm working on. So I'm going to use my filter up here to just select the programs that I'm going to be working on based on the label.
Awesome.
You can filter by phase. There's a lot of phases in here because this is a demo account, so it has a modge podge of everything.
Got it.
Most people have like basic phases in here. And then you can filter by labels. And these labels are all customizable. So you can create your own labels for your program. So you might want to create a label for all of the programs that are community-based, or like all the things we're going to work on at the park or at the store. Create labels for programs that you're working with siblings or.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to go ahead and just select the programs I'm going to work on for the next hour. So I'm going to do problem behavior, parent programs, and some language. So now my list is much smaller and not be scrolling around as much. Also, I can change the interface based on how I'm working, how I'm going in and out of targets. If I'm going quickly in and out of targets, which it sounds like that's what your staff would do, I would probably use another view. This is a good view where you're clicking into programs one at a time. You're kind of focusing in on a program. And it is also a nice view because you can see you can see over here, squares, those indicate like how many opportunities you've done with those particular programs. And it gives you kind of like a visual of like what you haven't done and what you have. Yeah. So that's super nice.
Yeah.
I think even a better view for natural environment training would be to show targets for all programs into this like really condensed collapsed version where you can go in and out of the targets quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could be working on colors and then all of a sudden there's a choice that like some opportunity comes up for choices. So then I can just open this up quickly and take that data on a preferred choice. And then let's say now mouthing occurs. Like so now I can click on these pin targets at the bottom of the screen, high frequency targets that you have accessible at all times. You just pin them to the bottom of the screen by clicking here, and you pin, and you can just pull it up anytime. So we're working on colors. Give her a choice. She starts mouthing the crayons. Now I click that and I can now go back into colors.
Awesome.
All right. So that shows you some like the user interface and the visibility of how the data collection works.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm just going to go into all of the different types of data collection measures. So I'm going to start with behavior reduction. So we have we have frequency here. So dropping to the floor can collect frequency data. This interface here for all targets is customizable. So a BCBA can change what's on this interface to meet their needs. So this BCBA wanted to collect some more data on antecedents to dropping to the floor. So I can put some information in here, transition to bedroom. And then as I'm collecting data, I might want to look at what happened in the previous session. That's super important and sometimes difficult to do in electronic data collection systems, because like in a Google Sheet or a binder,
Yeah.
you can just flip to the last session and see everything.
Right.
Super important for RBTs to make decisions. So you can do that easily in our system by clicking on this back in time icon for the target. So if I want to see what she did in the last session with dropping to the floor, I just click here and it pulls up the graph and also the clinical data. So I can access that easily.
Yeah, that's super helpful because sometimes we have one client who receives 2 sessions a day with 2 different techs. So the afternoon, knowing what happened in the morning, yeah, that's huge.
Okay, so then we also have duration tracking. So if we're working on her daily living skills, let's say that's happening, and we're working on tying shoes, so you can also put in pictures. And then she gets frustrated, so she starts to cry. So I can just click on that pop-up. I could start the timer and then continue working on the skill. Or if that's just hard to do or hard to remember, because if someone's crying, usually you're attending to the child instead of your data, you can always just click into point and put in the time that happened. So she cried for a minute.
Perfect.
And you just type that in and then you can put notes in.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, that's helpful because sometimes they leave their phone over here and they're over here, look at their watch, go back and enter it.
Yeah, that's super handy. So that is, so frequency, duration, and then we also have, you can create magnitude, like be able to track magnitude of tantrums, crying. Also, I can show you our interval feature where you could do partial, whole, time sampling.
Cool.
Do you use interval data collection often?
Yeah, sometimes, especially when we have a new behavior and we need to figure out the significance of it. Is it really intrusive, or is it just a kind of like a one-time deal?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm going to leave this session and show you a quick demo of the interval feature. I didn't have it in here because I didn't want the dinging to happen throughout the session.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But let me show you. So Merida's session has interval data, and I set up.
Emily's excited to show this one. It's supposed to be one of our GWOWs. We just
we just released it last month.
Yeah, wow.
We just released it last month, and I was so excited because I've used other interval data collection systems and no one's really kind of gotten it right. It's just too confusing and annoying, but I really love this one. So okay, so I'm going to start the session, but I set up the intervals to be just like 30 seconds to a minute, which that's not really what usually happens. Usually you're going to be like 15 minutes, 30 minutes or something like that. But so just bear with me because you're going to like hear a lot of dinging.
Got it.
I'm just going to start partial, whole, and momentary. Okay. All right. So right away, it's going to give me a ding to say, oh, you have interval data that you need to collect. So I can start taking data in other areas, working with the learner. And then when the interval ends, I would then respond to, is the behavior occurring now? I would say no, and then it closes and now it's gone. So that momentary time sampling will only appear in the moment. So now I come up, is behavior occurring now? No, the whole interval is different because you're going to answer, did the behavior occur in this whole interval? And of course, you would have specific targets in here, like attending or stimulatory behavior or something like that.
Yeah.
And here's a partial interval that's just finishing. And then it pops up and it's asking you, did the behavior at least once in this interval? And you can respond to that. And then now you can see the next one is loading. So, and then these are always in the bottom corner of your screen, so they can click at it any time. And if several intervals go by, they can go back and just catch up on the interval, move in and out of the intervals and change their response.
Perfect.
Yeah, and you can see the session outcome here is what is going to be graphed. So it will graph 60%, 67%.
Is it possible to see the graph?
Oh yeah. Let me just open.
My inner BCBA is also coming out now.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, find one that has several points. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the graph, and here we go. So this is the percent of intervals that the behavior occurred, and it's automatically graphed. So then you can see the raw data below. But I'll go into more graphs. You're gonna get really excited later.
I know. I'm already excited.
All right, I'm gonna end this session.
But even tracking all three, like, yeah, that was a lot, but the odds of someone actually tracking all three is going to be pretty slim to have that going on at the same time. But yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, most people are not that mean to RBTs.
No, I have only ever done it when I have been there and I was the one doing it. So
a feature like this, RBTs could handle one interval on like a 15-minute or 30-minute interval.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very doable. It just walks them through it and it asks them the question.
Yep.
Did this behavior occur? Yes, no, that's okay. I'll pull up this so you can see this. So here's
everything.
Here is a pretty detailed graph of dropping to the floor, and I can aggregate the data by session or I can aggregate it by day. So now let's talk about skill acquisition programs. So like you had said, you guys do some typical prompt hierarchy type of data. So here's an example of prompt hierarchy. This is a listener responding, so an early intervention program, LR intact, more verbal behavior language. And they created a verbal behavior prompt hierarchy. So what that you can do is you create your own custom prompt hierarchies for your organization. And then you can save those prompt hierarchies in a dropdown so that your staff can just select which prompt hierarchy they want.
Perfect.
And then you can see up here, you have each of these squares indicates an opportunity. And the opportunity usually is like your trial. And you can set up different rules based on how your session outcome is. Your session outcome is how you want your session scored. So this session outcome is based on percent. And you can set it based on rate or duration. This particular target is set up, you can see the first three targets are glowing. And that's because this person set up a 3 opportunity probe where they wanted to see just the first 3 opportunities.
Got it.
And then you can set up multiple phases. This particular program has a very basic baseline train phase list, but you can make a phase list to look however you want. And I'll show you some examples of that in just a second. Okay. But I want to show you what this graph will look like. So you have your baseline here, and then obviously this baseline failed. And so the system will know what to do. The system will automatically take a failed baseline and transition it into skill acquisition.
Awesome.
Choose to do that. And then now it's in skill acquisition and you can see the data.
Awesome. So adversely, if we make it through the baseline and let's say we had all 3, we got 100%, does it automatically master that out instead of going into like, we need to do this? Yeah.
So here, let's test it here. Of course, this baseline might be set for a 3 session baseline, but let's just see. So if I pass this baseline, this 3 target baseline, oh, there you go. So now it knows you transition to completed. Some people want to check this across people. And so you can set up that as well. Cool. So now I know looking when requesting is transition to completed. And now it will move to the next target. Look at speaker and let's just go ahead and fail that baseline. And now it's saying, okay, now we're going to go to train.
Very nice.
Now it's in the train phase. And you can look at the protocols here and you can put a bunch of protocols and details underneath the interface so people can go in and read instructions on how to run the program. I'm going to show you now a really complex phase list that you can set up. So you can see what I showed you was very a basic, traditional, ABA program, baseline, train, prompt hierarchy. I'm going to show you one that is a little more complex. This is a verbal behavior program based on the Carbone method using the card.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I actually got to see him at a conference. It was really cool.
Oh, he's so nice.
Yeah, he brought some people with him, talked all about the clinic. I was like, this is fun.
He's so sweet. He's so sweet. I actually, I don't have it here, but I have a thank you card from him. And I'm like,
oh, I feel like you would appreciate this. This is Bill Heward's signature from the ABA. I know nobody gets this except people in the field. My husband's like, you're really lame. And I was like, people appreciate that.
Totally. Okay. So they were using the Carbone method, the card program. So they wanted to teach features, all of these targets across verbal operants without having to like teach all of them. Okay, now we're in listener responding. Now we're in TAC. Now we're in interverbal. They wanted to go in and out. So she was not able to capture this in her electronic data collection system that she was using at the time. And then they switched to Motivity, and she was like, I don't think you'll be able to do this because it's really complex. And then she showed me the program and how they were doing it on a clipboard with like 6 data sheets where they were like flipping it around. Yeah.
Yep.
I really think we can do this. So we worked together, we created a template, and then a week later she came back and she's like, I built it. She's like, it works perfectly. And
wow.
They can use the template for all of the other Carbone targets or targets that they do that way. So let me show you how that works. We have all these targets: fur, sharp teeth, horns, and you can see on the right-hand corner, it has the phase that it's in. And then here's the phase list that each target goes through. It goes through listener responding phases, tax, interverbal, and then generalization. So if I pull up the graph here, you could actually see that this target was introduced in listener responding, then it moved across all the different learning, like verbal operant phases here. So it looks pretty complex, but really cool to see. And then as I'm collecting data, the system knows when it's ready to move to the next phase. So this just worked perfect. Is ready to transition to the interverbal naming phase features, and I can then transition it. Or if I choose, I can maybe not transition it and do it later. And then this like bar kind of flashes for all of the staff to remind them that, hey, it's ready to transition. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the data collection interface for RBTs. So then let's go into the BCBA side. So I'm London's BCBA now, and I just want to check in, see how she's doing. I can do that in several ways. I could go into her timeline and reports, and this is a vertical timeline of events. You can see right now she's in a session. I could click into that session and I could actually see the data from everything that we just collected together. I can see all the transitions right at the top, which is all of the targets that were introduced and mastered. And I can click into it and get more information. So I can see 2 targets were introduced into baseline, and I can even click into the graphs to get more of a look if I want to. But this is just a quick glimpse of what happens in your sessions. Then back to the timeline. The timeline is a summary of just what's going on. So I can see that there's session notes in here that need to be fixed because they've been rejected. I can see additional transitions that occurred on November earlier today. And I can see when events are added. So here she moved to a new school. So that's an event that happened to her, and that will also be on the chart for the graph. So this is just a nice little visual of just catching up on what's been going on with your.
Yeah. You'll probably come back to it, but how do you accept or reject a session note?
That would be right here. So, and that just depends on if you set up an approval workflow. Some organizations don't need an approval workflow, and so they don't have an accept or reject step, but you can. So that's why we have it in here. But
we definitely do that because Tricker's gotten real picky with their session notes. So we like to make sure that everything looks good, that extra layer of accountability and double
Mhm.
checking everything. So
You can create your own session note templates so that it looks exactly the way it needs to look for your, so like for TRICARE. So you can make it look, you can make your session note meet all of those requirements. And then what you would do is then when they finish their session, they would fill out the session note and it would also auto-populate the data from the session
perfect.
into the note. And I can actually just show you what that looks like by creating a session note for that session that we just did. So if I go to my timeline, I'll create a new session note. Okay, so then I'll create a note. All right, now the note is it's for me to fill out. So I can create check boxes here. I click in to have the data populated. So it shows the targets that were worked on, dropping to the floor, crying, mouthing, and the number of times that it happens. I can select my interventions used. And of course, this is just a template that we created for the demo. You can make it look however you want. And then you can have a narrative. So here's the skill acquisition targets. And then here's a place where you can put your narrative. You can sign it. Then you can have the parent sign it. If you have like a parent signature step that you need, you have that.
Yep.
And then from there, so let me go ahead and sign it. So RBT signature sign. And then the RBT would just hand over their device and would click on the purple bar and they won't have to log in. And then they just fill out the attestation, dad's signature, and then submit. So now at the bottom of the note, you have the RBT and the dad's signature.
Awesome.
And then now it goes into an approval process. So this note will now show up in pending notes for the person that needs to look at it. So here's 9 awaiting approval and 2 rejected. So if I was an RBT, I wouldn't see the awaiting approval. I would just see my notes that were rejected.
Okay.
Yeah. As a supervisor, I would see just the approvals. And of course, I'm writing notes as well. So maybe I'd have things that are rejected. But yeah. Right. But then you can also just have billing, like an admin go in and just, yeah.
Yep, that's what we do now. So if we have all of our RBTs come in over 1 week every single month, and we hand check all of the written notes and then give them back or have them fixed, or I think they're good. So
okay, so this would be super helpful because you would just have like one big inbox and you could go in awaiting approval and you can look at each one.
Yep, that would be amazing.
And then the rejected ones would go.
The whole template makes my heart happy.
Yes.
The
template. She's one of
template.
the people who checks. So this is very exciting.
Very cool. And then, and then if you reject any of them, you can tell them why it's rejected. So if I say, okay, well, why is this I'm going to reject this. And then you put what type of rejection. Of course, you can have 1 or 2. Like if you have a clinical reviewer and a billing reviewer, you can set up 2 different approvals. Most people. Yeah. But let's say it's a billing rejection. And so then I can set up like why it's being rejected for billing. So I can say like the times don't match or whatever. And I can put details. Please check times. It says PM.
Got it.
So then I submit that, and then now they'll be able to see this note in their rejection inbox, and they'll be able to.
Okay.
Then they would go in, change it, and re-sign it and submit it.
Okay. Because it has 2 signatures, would it need a parent signature again, or like does it kick those out?
You can decide that. You can. Okay. So in your template, you can say rejection removes all signatures, or you can say, rejection just removes the author's signature.
Okay. Yeah. That would be good because a lot of times parents are like, why are you having me sign this again?
Yeah.
For the times don't match, that actually triggered something in my mind. We have a separate time tracking tool that we use for our RBTs to track like what they do during the day, sessions, all of this stuff. So do you have anything where that would feed into, or is there a way to export the times that are on session notes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. Yeah. So if you go to If you go to all of your learner list, you can click on drop down menu and you can export all of your session times. So you can do session times or the note data. The note data will be more accurate because your session times is when they push the start session button.
I see. Okay.
Right.
Not
And
the
that's
section note.
Yeah. Now the start session time might not be accurate because you could show up for the session and you'd start the Motivity session like maybe 5 minutes after. So you want to probably track the note data. So then you would pull this report. You would download it to a CSV file, which you can change to Excel, and then you can filter all of that data, and you can then filter like all of the sessions based on the learner. You can calculate how many sessions they've had, the total duration of their sessions, the start, the end time. You can use it to cross-check your billing.
That would be good because then we have supervision for supervisees like that are becoming BCBAs. So we may create a note for them so we know when they were in session and who they were with, because then we also track supervision for the BCB and all of that stuff going in too. But being able to have that to cross-reference everything would be really helpful. Plus to just export to our biller for insurance claims would be wonderful.
Yeah. And you can also customize the report to include the columns that you need. If you need the report to be pulled and that has the CPT codes and different things that you need, you can customize it to fit it like what you need to be for billing or for clinical purposes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, graphs. So if I want to go in and just check in on how London's doing on her goals, her treatment goals, I go to programs in progress and I can see her behavior tracking programs, her skill acquisition programs and assessments. And I could see that there's 2 active behavior tracking programs and there's 17 active ones. And then you can also see everything that's been completed and maintenance. This is a really nice view of everything. And then if you click in more, you can see the active programs, how long they've been in acquisition for, when they were last run. And then you can dial into even more if you can see each target.
Yeah. And
again, you can see the date it was introduced and how long it's been in acquisition. And then this is where you can see, this is where the charts get really fun. So I'm going to show you, but I can also change and I could aggregate all the data points. So I could see by session, by day, by week, by month, so it aggregates the data points together, which is super nice.
That's good because then by session, if we have a kid who has multiple sessions a day, you won't see all of those broken up if it's not.
Yeah. So you might want to, you take it by session, but if you want to aggregate it by day, you can see. Also, you can display a histogram, which is the top graph is the rate and the bottom graph is the count, which you would see. So that's super nice. You can zoom in on a particular part of the graph. You can see that the data if you hover over, and then you can also select, let's say I just want to look at July and August, and now it zooms in on just that.
Oh, very cool.
A lot of cool things. You can export the image here, and you can export the raw data here, and then you can click on any data point and it will pull up the raw data right under here. So you can see.
Oh, wow.
Another cool thing is you can also select a time frame. So let's say you just want to see like the first month of data collection compared to the last month. So you can select a time frame and it will show you the average of just those data points that you selected right underneath here. And then let's say now you want to compare it to the last month, and then it shows you the average for this last month.
Wow. You
can change the date range here as well, so it's more precise. Lots of cool stuff you can do with graphs.
Yeah.
And it's immediate. Like the graphs are like, there's a dot on the graph for the session right now that we have.
That's so cool.
So then you have your skill acquisition data. This is super handy. We have a cumulative chart here of all of the targets mastered over time.
Wow. Yeah.
That's helpful for being able to see like rate of acquisition.
Yeah, that's great. And then insurance companies now only want to see, the previous authorization period. So even being able to go in and just select that is great without losing the overall.
Yeah. And then to add programs, it's very simple. You just go to plus program. So let's say like we want to add a new program, new goal, click plus program, and then you can either assign it from a library or create from scratch. So most often you're going to want to assign from a library because it will be more efficient. So you'll be able to create your own libraries in here based on your own calls.
Cool. Okay.
But we also have a library that's free to get people going with a bunch of templates. So in here, you'll have, all kinds of different types of data collection templates, ABC data, component analysis, DRL, functional analysis, discrete trial, EFL programs. And then we also have like early intervention skill-based programs that are based on the BBMAP, the ABLS, the Vineland. So you can search those codes and look for programs that align with the BBMAP or the ABLS codes or the tasks that you're focusing on.
Awesome.
You can select a program and then you can assign it to the learner, and you can also simulate it to see if it's a good program right here in this simulation. You can look at kind of like the outline. And then in here, this is the program editor. This is kind of looks a little techie, but your staff would get training. There's like a lot of resources, like online training, coaching sessions, kind of learn like how this is like set up.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that because I was like, there are so many things that you can do, being able to get it all set up initially. I know it's a lot of work that would go into getting everything up and running. So making sure they get the training is going to be good.
Yeah, and also not just the training, but we would help you set up initially a really solid library of templates. So, for example, we would create like, what is your NET skill acquisition tracker look like? Build it for you. Then we would build you your behavior reduction templates, task analysis templates, any like data sheet that you use often. We would create that for you, and then drastically lowers the anxiety because they're not creating anything from scratch.
Yes.
It's just there. They would just basically have to just put in their targets, and then this is what it would basically look like. We'd say, okay, I don't need to do listener responding. So I'm going to delete that phase, but I'm in TACT and I'm going to add my own list of targets here. So I click plus target, and then I add mouth and hand and feet. Or we already have feet. Elbow. And then we can just add this huge list of targets, and then just click create, and it creates that list for you. So we would spend time before we like release it out to your BCBAs. We would spend time on building the infrastructure to make it really efficient and easy.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. Because I'll end up running it by my CEO. So that'll be really good to have that backup information as well and be like, oh yes, we talked about this. Fast forward, find it in the video. Very helpful.